I want to be back on the air. And they laugh. And you're how old? 80? Hey, babe, you'll be dead in a week. So how can we take a chance on that?
Barry has had one hell of a life.
I'm still 20 in my head.
Filled with the bright lights of success and yet never immune from the shadows of failure.
And it's quite a shock. It's a little scary. It's very daunting. I'm scared to death.
Barry, you could say, is someone who could have been.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
Yeah, Barry knew Brando, by the way. Hung out in Brando's apartment when Barry was a kid. Barry was a part of TV's golden age.
Your show of shows with Sid Caesar, Imogene Coca, Carl Reiner, everybody, and the writers were Mel Brooks and Woody Allen. I directed Woody Allen in 3 television shows in Las Vegas. I actually saved his life in a flood once. He claims I saved his life.
Mr. Peepers, starring Wally Cox.
Yeah, our rehearsal started at 7 in the morning for a show that would air at 7 that night. We had 12 hours of rehearsal.
He worked alongside those early TV legends. Many would become lifelong friends. Barry was poised to have a movie career.
My friendship with one of my classmates, Sal Mineo, directed me in a different direction.
Is he a friend of yours?
Yeah, he's my best friend. You have to get to know him. He doesn't say much, but when he does, he means it. I
was called to play Tony Curtis as a young boy in a film called 6 Bridges to Cross.
6 bridges to cross.
It was about the Brinks robbery in Boston. I get up to Universal to do this cursory reading for Joe Pevney, who later directed all the Star Trek series. I should have kept in touch with Joe. Anyway, he said, "Excellente," but when I got off the elevator to do the reading, who's sitting on the bench but Sal?
Hello, rookie. Come on in.
And I thought, this does not look good.
Who's bragging? I ain't bragging. Didn't you know I have a record?
I got so discouraged, I heard an Air Force recruiting announcement, and so I enlisted in the Air Force.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder.
My mother went ballistic but she realized that Sal would be getting all my parts.
But his life would take many unexpected turns, lots of them very bad.
Considered suicide very seriously. I thought I
got the gun, or what were you going to do?
Yeah, gun. And I just thought, well, no, maybe it'll get better. And then you either survive or you don't.
But at every crossroad, there were famous names of the last century.
Rosemary Clooney and I became really close, and George Clooney's aunt.
Yeah.
And she had me do a special with her in Edmonton, Alberta.
Actors, singers, Olympic heroes, and powerful politicians and world leaders. Some became lifelong friends, and others betrayed him. Some never knew he existed, but Barry did. He called them giants, and in this podcast series, we're going to look back at Barry ZeVAN and his life among the giants.
Thank God for the reputation that I was fortunate enough to amass. All these famous people become your fans. They start watching you.
When you mention Barry ZeVAN to someone who grew up in the 1970s Minnesota...
Eyewitness News, the Northwest's most complete, comprehensive, and up-to-the-minute coverage.
Most will follow up with Barry ZeVAN, the weatherman. I grew up in the 70s watching local TV and somehow always found myself anxiously anticipating Barry's weather forecast. I didn't care so much about the weather. I mean, it's Minnesota. Who can predict it, really? Halloween was either warm or a 3-foot blizzard. But TV weather is all about the personality.
I like Barry ZeVAN, the weatherman, because he's a real meathead-ologist.
Jimmy, that's meteorologist.
That's what I said.
At least it was then, and I'm thinking it still is today. Hello, Al Roker and Willard Scott. Yeah, Barry knew them too. More about that later. And who can explain memory? what sticks with you and what fades away, but I can vividly remember one time Barry did his usual walk from the news desk to the weather wall, and as the camera panned to follow, there on a small table was a plant, and a sign was attached, "Plant of the Apes." No mention of it. It was just there, but I got it. I laughed. A joke that seemed just for me. Yeah, Barry was cool. He got it. If you would have told my 13-year-old self that I would one day also work at the same ABC station as Barry, well, I would have said, right. Turns out I made it 31 years at that station. Barry only 4. But somehow Barry's footsteps are bigger. He moved on to other opportunities and bigger paychecks, and Barry's unbelievable story is a Forrest Gump tale of famous connections, happenstance, and the universe just being what it is.
And of course now, at age 80...
that question's been answered. You're a survivor.
Yeah. Get me back in the ring, Rocky.
It all started in his youth. Barry's school in New York City had classmates like a who's who of future stars.
Our classes were Elliot Gould, Sal Mineo, Leslie Uggams, Tuesday Weld, Sandra Dee, Patty Duke, Carol Lindley. We were all together.
After the military and small-town TV and radio out west, Barry landed in Las Vegas, working for the mysterious and legendary Howard Hughes.
And then they nursed it, and they rehearsed it.
In the 60s, we're talking the 1960s Vegas with Elvis and the Rat Pack.
I got to know Sammy Davis Jr. very well. He and I were friends, and he was so nice to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, having traveled around the world many times, I can say this honestly. I liked Barry ZeVAN, the weatherman, because stay with me. I'll think of a reason.
What's happening, baby? Gay pasa. I'll sleep here, you hippy-dippy weatherman, with all the hippy-dippy weather, man.
George Carlin. George and I became really close, too.
And he does a bit about weathermen.
Yes, and he would do the hippy-dippy weatherman, then he would always reference me. Same Newhart. Bob Newhart did that, too.
You know, we've been a little worried about you, Walt.
And so Bob is responsible for me being in the Twin Cities. One morning he said to me, Barry, you belong in a much bigger market. He said, why don't you see if there's a job out there?
Majors, Ryther, ZeVAN. We got who you wanted, starting February 11th on KSTP5's Eyewitness News.
Scared David Letterman out of the market.
Most of Missouri is under a flash flood watch. The same holds true for Iowa.
Letterman even reconsidered his career as a weather guy. He went on to comedy instead. Did pretty well. You were kind of Sal Mineo to Dave Letterman in that he saw you at an opportunity here in Minnesota and said, I can't compete with that guy.
That's right. Exactly true. The Star Tribune did a story fantasizing as to how it would have been if he had come here and I had become, it was the Late Show with Barry ZeVAN.
To have corresponded, remained in touch?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And it sounds like he's come to your aid when you were in need.
Yes.
Isn't that something?
One time. And it was wonderful.
Barry went to the nation's capital, and his Rat Pack became the who's who of network politics.
I'm Peter Jennings in New York. Just a short while ago, astonishing news from East Germany.
I mean, these were all the major players in journalism.
Yep, and Jennings and I were like brothers. We really, really were. Peter was so unaffected and unassuming for a man with that power.
You were having a party, and all these folks were coming to your house, to your party.
Yep.
And Peter Jennings, I don't know if it's a social faux pas, but he shows up early.
Yeah, a half hour early with a bottle of wine and his wife, Anushka.
Ted Koppel had a rickshaw at a party?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Ted. It was a New Year's Eve party.
Was there booze involved?
There was booze there, yeah, but the next morning at 8 o'clock, my doorbell rings, and it's pouring rain, and there's Koppel in this mop of hair. I had some incredible times there, fantastic times, and at all these lavish parties with all the people who run the world, and
we haven't even touched upon, you had a whole career in this downhill ski industry.
Yeah.
I mean, that here's like, wait, what?
Yeah, I know. Koppel told me once, he said, you've lived 10 lives.
Yeah. Somehow he ended up in Iran with Olympic champion Billy the Kid and Susie Chaffee.
And he had me wear his medals, his Olympic medals. Yeah, I had them around my neck, doing a film for the Shah of Iran, in Iran.
Is there a reoccurring moment in your life that comes to you more than others?
Wow, what a great question. There are several.
But ultimately, it was a life that always left him wanting more.
Mr. Hubbard, the last day I was there, said, you can stay here the rest of your life and I'll put it in writing. Those were his exact words. And I said, Mr. Hubbard, I never had a lot of money. I want to find out what it's like. Well, I found out.
Coming up, an 8-part series of an incredible life, one that is frankly hard to believe. What's the happiest you've ever been?
Oh, wow. What a fantastic question.
You're going to have a front row seat to the beginning of America's broadcast history. Vegas when it was Vegas. Washington, D.C. when politics was first becoming a TV sensation. And always the biggest names in Hollywood moving in and out of this life story. What advice would you give someone about life?
Oh my gosh.
Not broadcast, not television, not acting, about life. Barry ZeVAN, My Life Among Giants.